Welcome to Magicbricks Dialogues. We have Mr. CJ Mathews with us. He's AVP Rajesh Lifespaces. Welcome, Mr. Mathews.
Thank you for having me.
What kind of projects are you developing in?
We have at this point about 7 projects across Bombay. We are spread between the central suburbs and the western suburbs. And if I were to club them all together, I would say that we are in the mid-segment to upper mid-segment. To give you a rundown, let me start with the joint venture project at Borivali West called 92 Bellevue. That is, it has 2 different types of 3 BHKs, just variants in size. We've applied for OC for that project, expecting the OC any minute now. Moving on, White City at Kandivali East, which is 1, 2, 3 and 4 BHK air-conditioned homes. Next is then Raj Infinia at Malad West, which is 2, 3 and 4 BHK homes. Moving on to Powai, which is currently our most premium project and a project that is ready to move in, delivered with OC ready. That is called Raj Grandeur at Powai. That has got 3 and 4 BHK homes with wonderful views of Powai Lake in the eastern seaboard. Next up is Raj Altiza in Noor West. That's got 2 and 3 BHK homes. And last but not least, my 2 projects in Thane, which is Raj Tattva, which is 3, 4 and 5 BHK homes, and Raj Torres, which is 2, 3 and 4. Both of the Thane projects are located at pretty much the first kilometer of the road from Thane side.
Okay, so what is the profile of your buyers?
Today, I think looking at a variety of factors, yeah. We're looking at aspirational values, we're looking at exposure to international concepts and international lifestyles, increased purchasing parity of a younger generation today, the willingness to go out and adventure, experience life as it should be, maybe not being as conservative as maybe people in our elder generations. Having looked at all of these phenomena of life today, we are seeing, number one, a younger home buyer. So we've actually even talked to people as young as 25 and 26 who's looking to buy into, move into their first home. We're looking at people, joint families who are willing to stay as a joint families, and so they needed a richer lifestyle but a larger space. We're looking at obviously businessmen from all walks of life. We're looking at people from multinational corporations who've done very well in their professional careers and now want to upgrade their lifestyle by moving into something that's a little more prestigious, maybe equivalent to the status quo. We're looking at entrepreneurial families, people who've been in the family business for a couple of generations and now are ready to make the big move in their life and try and get a better, more richer lifestyle to live in. That, in a nutshell, is talking about all the type of buyers that we're getting to.
So, do you see that this current market is the end user market or an investor market? And what's the ratio you are actually facing, in Rajesh Lifespaces? See,
I think traditionally, as is with most real estate projects, number one, are the largest, about 60%, if I were to throw a figure, about 60% of your home buyer comes from, let's say, a 500 meter to 1 kilometer radius. Now, these are people who are already living in that suburb, or they have an emotional connect to that suburb, or they have elderly parents living in that suburb, etc., etc., etc. So, when I'm looking at that 60%, I end up looking at a much larger number of end users. Now, even if I look at the whole life cycle of a project, if that project had 100 apartments or 200 apartments, my skew is always larger number of end users. Today, I think with the slower marketplace that existed over the last 2 years, investors are few and far between. I think they're just biding their time in terms of understanding what can they do with their present investments that they've probably made 3 years or 2 years ago, and see how that can grow into the future, how that will span out for the next 3 years before they come out back into the market and start buying as robustly as they were, say, as back in 2014-15.
Right. So the areas you have mentioned that yes, of course, you are developing in Thane, Kandivali, and Malad, right? So what are the prices you are selling at? What is the difference of prices here we have, and what kind of difference in market demand you see in these areas?
Since we have a collection of central and western suburban projects, I think the first difference in demand that we see, or rather is the first difference in the type of consumer we see. My own personal reading into this is that a western suburban buyer is usually more flamboyant, is less risk averse. He likes to get into a project as young as it can be so that he can see his money along with the building. On the other hand, on the central suburb, we have people who are a lot more conservative. They want to see a good measure of work before they put in their money, and by that time they've already gained confidence, and thereby you even see the difference in the gestation periods. Maybe in a good market space, you could say a Western buyer usually could make his decision in 3 weeks to 3 months. Uh, in the central market, and when it was a better market space, it was 6 weeks to say about 4 or 5 months. Today, it's actually out and out for everybody. Everybody's taking the longest gestation period. I think primarily because of the options available in the market, the number of incentives that different developer markets are giving, and obviously the three big legislation moves that have happened in the year 2017 has also probably helped people to take a closer look at what they want to buy, and then eventually make a really informed choice so that there is no room for regret in the future.
Right. So what are the key drivers around your projects? What are the infrastructure developments you see that happening, or the key drivers why people should buy in the areas you're developing in?
I think, so if I start with Thane first, I think Thane and the amount of fantastic work that the Thane Municipal Corporation has put on board, it's a lovely, lovely city. Thane used to be called the backyard of Mumbai, but I don't think that exists anymore. Today, Thane is given its own prominence from a residential space, and you can see a large number of retail brands that have chosen to skip maybe even what was primarily good retail markets for branded retail players, and move into Thane because they see higher purchasing parity there. So Thane is about the new life, I think. I mean, good infrastructure all around, continuously evolving to make the life of the citizens easier. A smart city now, as enumerated as across the 100 smart cities across India. Mulund today is a very robust market, I think, today. I think every developer worth his salt really wants a piece of the action in Mulund, because on the central suburbs, if you look at the age-old tendency of Mumbaikars wanting to move southwards, I think after Thane, Mulund is first stop for a lot of people in their journey towards heading towards the south of Bombay. Powai as such, well, I wouldn't say there's a lot in terms of infrastructure development. I think Powai is a cultural hub on its own. The kind of lifestyle that Powai offers today, I think very few suburbs or very few corners of Bombay offers it. Maybe in comparison, you have Bandra, you might have Versova, you might have South Bombay. The kind of diaspora of people that live at Powai also is that I would say they're maybe highly evolved, and so their choices in life are also kind of evoke their lifestyle, and so the kind of demand that exists in Powai is different from maybe even the western and central suburbs. Western suburbs, well, I'm sure all of the viewers are reading tons and tons of information on all the infra projects that are planned for the western suburbs, be it the metro, be it the new sea link road that will probably go from Bandra to all the way to Kandivali. I think all of those infra projects, not only do they add to the appreciation and escalation of each of those suburbs that will get directly affected, but it also signifies very greatly that moving around Bombay, which today is an issue because of thresholds and bottlenecks, is going to become easier. And so while each of these projects have their own project DNA, which will be their USP, maybe it's a large apartment, maybe there are fabulous views, I think each of our locations also spells very sound infrastructure, whether it's already present or is to be delivered by the governments in the near future.
Right. Tell us about your projects which are completed or nearing the completion, and what are the price points Rajesh Lifespaces is up to?
In terms of completed projects today, we are talking about Raj Grandeur, my Powai project, that has already procured its OC. The rest of my projects, I think the next one in line is White City in Kandivali. They'll come out June 2019 and thereafter. All of our projects are RERA registered, and so all the information on possession dates are there. In terms of prices, I think I'll just say a large statement. I think our most economical offering across the portfolio starts at about 1.25 crores today for a 1 BHK, and goes as high as about 6 crores for the delivered project in Powai.
Okay. So this is your completed project, right? Otherwise,
yeah, Raj Grandeur is the completed project. Yes.
Otherwise, you are actually developing in each segment.
Yes, right? All the others are under construction projects.
So tell us about the price points in those.
Okay, so in under construction projects, again, my most economical offering is the 1 BHK at White City in Kandivali East. That's about 1.2 crores. Raj Infinia and Malad West starts at around 2 crores. Uh, Raj Ortiza and Mulund is about 1.5 to 1.6 crores onwards. Thane, my two properties, I think my larger, more premium segment starts at around 2 crores for a 3 BHK at Raj Tatwa. And Raj Torres 2 BHK will start at around 1.5, 1.6.
Okay, my last question to you.
Sure.
What is the lifestyle Rajesh Lifespaces is offering to its consumer? USP of your project?
It is probably rhetoric for a developer to say that, we put in a lot of thought and planning into what our consumer would want today or 3 years hence when I'm going to deliver the project. It should be a mandate actually for every developer to do that, to understand what they want to provide to their consumers so that when they finally move in, they're actually enjoying life there. They're having a fruitful life there. So the one commonality I think amongst all of my projects that I'm marketing today is the fact that there is going to be open spaces for activities for people of all age groups. Some projects, obviously being smaller than other, will have a little lesser in terms of large, open spaces. But whether it be a swimming pool, which is today almost a standard offering in a lot of projects, to specific zones. For example, one of my projects called the Raj Torres in Thane, we have a dedicated classroom that we hope will help students in that particular project use as a classroom for even private tuitions should they choose to, rather than going to another destination where a parent has to be worried about traveling to that destination or getting their child to that tuition, bringing them back. Rather just come down and maybe a teacher or tutor comes to the society when the society is formed, and the students are getting the education they need in a more comfortable, more stable, more secure environment. So we try and do as much as probably every other developer would. We try and do and put the right mix of things so that your lifestyle is enriched in the long run, and that you and your family and future generations will be thoroughly happy and actually really proud of owning a Rajesh Lifespaces home.